Hello and welcome anyone. Let's give it a couple more moments for the rest of the people to come in. We have a big crowd joining in today for the webinar. Okay, I think we are good to start. Hello and thank you everyone for signing up and welcome to the webinar today. My name is Kaisa and I'm the coordinator of our brand new Mission Zero Academy, and I will be hosting the webinar today. And for those of you who don't know our organization, Zero Waste Europe is a Brussels-based NGO working on advocacy at the EU level, but also a network of organizations implementing zero waste strategies at the national and local levels across Europe. And the Mission Zero Academy is a hub for zero waste related training, expertise, and practical tools with which we hope to accelerate the transition towards a zero waste Europe. And we are hoping to formally launch the Academy in the middle of March this year. And this is the first webinar of 2021 and part of our ongoing Zero Waste Europe live webinar series semester. The webinars happen once a month from October to June, and we will cover topics around various zero waste related issues. And today we are talking about packaging-free shops. We know that recycling alone will not be enough to solve the waste crisis that we face today. Urgent action is needed to tackle the problem systematically and holistically. And an important component of this is the need for citizens to rethink their consumption patterns and methods to generate less waste. And in recent years, we have seen a huge rise in the growth and popularity of packaging-free shops across Europe, aimed at reducing waste and connecting consumers with the food and products they purchase. Zero Waste Europe recently conducted a pioneering survey on the rise of packaging-free shops in Europe and what this means for waste prevention levels. The findings of this survey will be presented at the start of this webinar and will form the basis of the discussion throughout, with leading experts from industry and business sharing their insights into what the role packaging-free shops can play in societies transitioning towards zero waste. In this webinar, we will take a closer look and examine some of the key questions, like what impact can packaging-free shops currently having on waste generation levels in Europe? Also, what roles do packaging-free shops have to play within the zero waste plan? And what actions can cities and municipalities take to facilitate the growth of further packaging-free and zero waste shops in their local area? And our speakers today are Larissa Copella, consumption and production campaigner at Zero Waste Europe, Marie de la Perrière, founder of Zero Waste Kiel and founder also of a packaging-free shop, and Lucia Pereira, director of legal affairs at Resuvrac. And then some general instructions about this webinar. So each of our speakers will present for 10 minutes. And after each presentation, we will have 10 minutes for clarification question for that particular speaker. And at the end of this 1 hour of presentations and questions, we will have a final 30 minutes of joint Q&A and discussion with all of the speakers together. And some tools that we are using in this webinar is we have the chat box at the bottom of the screen, and there feel free to introduce yourself to everybody if you feel like it. And if you have any questions or comments, you can put them into the Q&A tool also at the bottom of the screen. And our speakers will see them there and we can address them when the time comes. And as the webinar platform, we have the maximum capacity of 100 participants on Zoom. We are also streaming it on YouTube. And those of you who are joining us via YouTube, you can submit your questions in the chat there, and we will pick them up from there, so no worries. And now, without further delays, let's get started in this exciting discussion with our first speaker, who was Larissa from Zero Waste Europe. She has background in law, and she has worked as a legal consultant on environment, health and safety policies. And she's also passionate about environmental protection and sustainable development practices. She likes to organize and manage her time well, but she's also ready to deal with any unexpected and adverse situations. And she's also a zero waster at heart and enjoys running campaigns, empowering people towards sustainable consumption patterns. And in her free time, she enjoys sports in general, but especially yoga and dancing are her true passion. She also likes cooking, preparing her zero waste cosmetics and products, and also she likes to be creative. And in her presentation, she will be especially addressing the state of play of packaging-free shops in Europe, the potential future growth scenarios for the sector in Europe, and also recommendations for the European Union and member states to put in place a set of legislative and economic measures to support expanding the packaging-free shop market. Please, Larissa, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Kaisa, and it's really nice to be here. And I'm going to slowly share my screen and my presentation with you. Hopefully you all can see it. So yeah, as Kaisa already presented me, so I'm Larissa Copello, Consumption Production Campaigner at Zero Waste Europe. And today I'm going to present the report we have done together with Rethink, and the consultants Eunomia on packaging-free shops in Europe, and a bit of how to make packaging-free shops to go mainstream. So yeah, this is a pioneer study on the state of packaging-free shops in Europe, which evaluates the state of play and also the potential future growth scenario for the sector in Europe. And in addition, I'm going to present some recommendations for the European Union and member states to put in place a set of legislative and economic measures to support expanding the packaging-free shops market. So just to give a bit of the context of the packaging waste in Europe, according to statistics, in 2017, 173 kilos of packaging waste was generated per inhabitant in the EU. And the packaging sector is the biggest contributor to plastic waste, generating around 17.8 million tons in Europe in 2018, accounting for about 60% of post-consumer plastic waste. So I guess this is how you see when you are in your house and dealing with waste. I guess the biggest waste stream you can see is packaging, right? So this is what it says. So yeah, this study, the scope of this study was focused on shops, packaging-free shops, and we defined these shops where the predominantly it's products in bulk, so no packaging, and where consumers can bring their own containers, and the products are usually sold by weight or volume. And these are typically shops, commonly are smaller, locally owned and linked to specific producers. The data was gathered to a survey which was distributed to 268 packaging-free shops across various countries in Europe with the help and support of our Zero Waste Europe network and also the Rethink network. The countries were Austria, Belgium, Bulgaria, Czech Republic, France, Germany, Latvia, Slovenia, Spain, and Ukraine. So yeah, a bit of the data, the summary of the data collected from the survey, where we have some aspects and context of the economic, social, and environment issues on packaging-free shops, and also the statistics of their growth. So regarding jobs, there is a strong increase in job growth in the sector, with the modeling presenting a mean estimate of 10,000 jobs in these sectors across Europe in 2023. Regarding the environment aspects and the waste, the waste reduction, so it estimated in the EU avoided packaging in 2023 as a result of packaging-free shops is approximately 5,500 tons. And packaging-free shops estimate to have avoided on average 1 ton of packaging per year per shop. Regarding the products sold in these shops, approximately 70% of the products are packaging free. Of course, we can also expect to have some products in not packaging free, because unfortunately today you cannot have everything packaging free. Regarding the mean shop turnover is around 170,000. Although this varies from country to country regarding the reality and situation, economic situation from each country. And there is evidence that average shop turnover has increased over the past 3 years in these countries. Regarding the location of these shops, so 74% are located in city centers and 6% located in rural areas. Also regarding the products sold, so the most sold products are food and drinks, and followed by cosmetic products, cleaning products, and zero waste accessories. And packaging free shops prefer to source from closer supplies. Evidence has shown that as the distance between the shops and their supplies increases, the quantity of good sources decrease. So as I said, they prefer to get local source supplies. All this data is available in the report, which I'm sure Rosella has already put the link there for you in the chat, and you can check further later on. So a bit of the state of play and the potential growth for the packaging free shops. Overall, very strong growth in the sector has been identified, as I have mentioned with the numbers. With increasing numbers of shops, jobs, and sales turnover achieved over the past 5 to 10 years, and long-term forecasts present a mid-estimate EU market for bulk goods of 2 billion in 2030, and the best case scenario of over 3.5 billion. So this a real and evident increase in growth of this market, this sector in Europe. But also with the survey and with the analysis, we have also identified some barriers that are restricting the growth of the sectors, and further on I will explain what we can do to overcome these barriers. So the first one is better reflection of the costs of packaging. So we say that nowadays single-use packaging, disposable packaging is being subsidized because actually the price you pay for the single-use packaging, disposable packaging, is not embedded the real external costs associated with the waste management of these products. For instance, the pollution and littering, the end-of-life costs. It's much more expensive to start as well a business with reusable systems and reusable products than single use. Single use is cheap, and it's cheap because of that, because they don't have really embedded in the cost of these products the real costs. I mean, the external costs. That is all the cost we associate with the cleanup, littering, and managing of this waste. Another barrier is the lack of clarity and consistency of application from regulators in respect of how book sales are defined and practice relating to food hygiene for packaging-free shops. So nowadays in the EU, there's no definition in the EU legislation of book sales. They're not defined, and in many member states there are some food hygiene regulations that can hamper the development of the market of some products in bulk. For instance, in Spain, I think it's forbidden to sell olive oil in bulk. Rather than in Belgium, we already see most of packaging-free shops selling olive oil in bulk. So that's the need of harmonization and definition of this sector that's growing. Another thing that is an obstacle, a challenge for the growth of these shops is development of supply chains. Because of course, because of all these factors as well, supply chains are not yet being fully developed for the packaging-free model, meaning that they are much less efficient than the mainstream supply chains for packaged goods. So yeah, so now that we have seen the state of play of packaging-free shops and the challenge, now I'm going to present the policy recommendations that we can increase the growth of packaging-free shops. So making this sector go mainstream will require a level playing field with disposable packaging. And this requires introducing appropriate and effective incentives to producers to develop new ways of bringing their products to the consumer through waste business models as packaging-free shops. Before presenting the recommendations, just give a short context of the current policy framework in Europe. So the European Commission, through their communication on the European Green Deal and the New Circular Economy Action Plan, they have confirmed their intention to focus on prevention and reuse, including the support to new business models and systems that prevent environmentally harmful products from being placed on the market. And the Waste Framework Directive and the Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive, which is being currently revised, they provide the right support for a real system change in the economy, focusing on prevention and reuse. So this is a real opportunity with the ongoing revision, especially the Packaging Waste Directive right now, for us to push for more support and economic incentives for packaging-free shops. A bit of some policy recommendations for the EU, and these policy recommendations are actually also, we have released last year a paper with all these policy recommendations that I'm sure Rosella will also pass in the chat for you. So yeah, moving the EU single market away from disposable products and reducing packaging waste generation will only happen if the biggest barriers for waste prevention and reuse are addressed. And this can be done, for instance, by setting overall cap on the amount of single-use packaging material put in the EU market, restricting the use of some packaging formats for some applications, especially when reusable products or systems are possible, or consumer goods can be handled safely without packaging. There are many examples of these types of products they're being sold in the packaging-free shops that actually doesn't need any packaging. They can be sold without any packaging. Also setting binding sector-specific reuse refill targets, where reuse and refill are already being explored, such as food and beverage. So you can see before, I'm sure some of you remember that there were much more beverage drinks being sold in refillable and being refilled and so in reusable packaging than today. And why the shift happened? Because of what I mentioned of the costs of single use and reusable. So setting up these targets can really help to develop further more reuse packaging. And also ensure better design of packaging. So introducing harmonized packaging formats, also called universal packaging formats through standards. And also reducing the complexity of packaging materials. So less layers, less materials, less polymers, the simple, the best. And introduce minimal mandatory green public procurement criteria and targets for packaging, because the public administration, they should give the example first place. Also really shortly, because now the member states are transposing the single-use plastic directive, it's also a good opportunity to include some waste prevention measures and facilitate development of this sector. So for instance, ensuring APR, extended producer responsibility schemes, are implemented with modulation fees and covering the end-of-life cost of packaging, including cleanup litter costs. That's really important for creating the level playing field that I mentioned with the other reusable products. Establishing a dedicated fund where at least 5% of these fees being collected are invested in waste prevention and reuse systems, for instance, packaging-free shops. is a support for them that could be used with this fee. Enlarging the consumption reduction targets for other single-use packaging formats, not only food and beverage containers, reducing or removing taxes on packaging-free and reusable and refillable products, and applying the post-return schemes policies beyond beverage and refillable quotas, and introducing economic incentives for packaging-free and reusable products and systems to overcome barriers to entry. So less fees on reusables, and maybe some extra fees and taxes on single-use products. And as well, introducing on public procurement standards, also some ban on single-use items and other incentives for packaging-free shops and reusable products to be used also in the public procurement sector. So yeah, I'm sorry for the really, I have to rush a bit now in the end, but I'm open to any questions you have. And thank you very much for listening to my presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Larissa. Very interesting information and really good findings from the study. And there are a few questions in the Q&A box. First of all, you mentioned earlier on in your presentation that there's like need for harmonization of the regulation, for example, with the olive oil being able to be sold in bulk. Do you know if there's some organization or some work being done to harmonize those practices across Europe? Like, is there somebody working on this topic already?
Actually, I know Husovrak, they are doing in France more, right? They are doing this work more of looking for harmonizing the book definition and the sales of packaging-free goods. They are doing more the work in France because they're located in France, but at the European level, yeah, I'm not sure, maybe the European food organizations, but yeah, I think Husovrak will be also able to reply to some questions specifically if you want to get in touch with them regarding this more hygiene and safety issues.
Great. What about, there's a question if you have any plan to do a second round of the similar research that you have done, including more EU countries?
Yeah, so this was really like pioneer research we have done with really not enough, how to say, reach. So we had the support of our network, the Zero Waste Europe network, and also Husovrak network, and yeah, we only had the capacity to do a few countries, but indeed, if we manage to get I know, bigger funds, etc., to support bigger research, which I think is really needed, because this one was kind of based on a survey that we passed to the packaging-free shop owners through our members, etc. So if we're able to do a kind of massive European level in all countries, that'll be great. But indeed, it needs further fund for that.
Great. Then what are your thoughts on packaging-free shops providing single-use paper bags for customers who do not bring their own bags? How do you see that?
Yeah, so this is kind of maybe a misconception that we have, that paper it's better than single-use paper is better than single-use plastic. Actually, what we see that maybe we have some more evidence that indeed paper is more recycled than plastic, but I think it should be avoided at most. Maybe they could also put some prices on this type of packaging, because shifting from single-use plastic to single-use paper, you're also shifting the environment impact from one product to another. So it's still single-use. And these shops, the objective of them, it's really to provide for this packaging free. So the idea is really to you bring your reusable container to get the product. And so yeah, I think it's I understand it's like the consumers arrive there with no packaging and want to buy something, what I can do, you know. They have to offer something nowadays, but maybe charge for this also single-use paper to you know, to avoid to avoid this become really like paper is okay, single-use paper is okay, you know. And another option is to have reusable containers in your shop where you can implement the deposit return scheme. You know, they pay a price for the container, and they bring it back home with the product, and then they give it back. So this would be the ideal, actually.
Great. Thank you for your answers. And there's still more time in the end to ask Clarissa more questions. But now we have to move on with our next speaker, who is Marie de la Perrière, founder of Zero Waste Kiel in Germany. And she's originally from France, but founded the Unverpackt, the first disposable packaging-free grocery shop in Germany, already in 2014. Since then, she regularly organizes seminars to promulgate the concept on the territory and abroad. And with a background and 15 years of professional experience in project management and logistics, Marie acts as a consultant and coach for future shop founders and zero waste projects. And since 2016, she's a chairwoman of the organization Zero Waste Kiel, which she co-founded. She also supports the municipality of Kiel on its way to a zero waste city. So please, Marie, the floor is yours. Marie, we can't hear you if you're trying to say something. Seems like there is some challenges with audio. Still no sound, Marie?
What's that?
Now it's fine, Marie. Yeah, please go ahead.
Oh.
Yes, now it's fine.
Okay, thank you. Then I share my screen. It's okay?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Yes, in this presentation, I will come briefly to the story of my shop and the movement in Germany. Then I will come to waste reduction as impact of packaging-free shops, and will give you some example on how my shop interacted with the city of Kiel. In 2012, two persons inspired me. Firstly, Bear Johnson, author of the bestseller Zero Waste Home and pioneer or mother of the zero waste lifestyle worldwide. And on the other side, Catherine Conway, who opened in 2006 the shop Unpackage in London. And Catherine is for me the real pioneer in Europe of packaging-free shops. I was so motivated that in February 2014, I opened my own store, Unverpackt, with at the beginning 250 products. Today, I have about 1,000 articles and 12 employees. All the products in the shop who cover the daily need are either sold as unpackaged, the customer brings his own container, or in deposit container, for example, for wine or milk. And my main goal is to ban any single-use packaging and also avoid a disposable society. Considering that the shop had from the beginning a very good resonance, I started in 2015 to give seminars and consultations for creators of bulk shops. I organize about 6 seminars per year and extend this year my offer with online seminars. And many of my pupils have already opened a shop. The map here is from 2018, and this was a year was really the exacting start of a real movement in Germany. But the most amazing is that the shop was the start of many other activities and adventures. For example, Zero Waste project, like the Low Plastic Island project in Föhr. This is an island close to Kiel. Then cooperation with universities, for example, the one from Eberswalde. And by the way, the team has recently published a book on this topic. It is in German, but probably will be fine. It will be in English translated. I don't know. Then consulting activities regarding zero waste, for example, for the city of Kiel, or publications. One of them was for the Ministry of the Environment of Schleswig-Holstein. This is a region where I am. And of course, the association Zero Waste Kiel EV, which was founded in 2016. This was a short overview of my shop and its story. If you are interested to know more, you can look at the case study, the story of Unverpackt. This is on the website of Zero Waste Europe in English and in German. But let's look now at the movement in Germany in the same way as in France. Shop owners saw the necessities to get together in an alliance with the goals of networking, exchanging information, defend the interest of the new retail sector, and promote the packaging-free shop idea and model. And this new sector is fully now recognized. Here are some examples who prove that. Unpackaged was really present at the Biofair 2020. This is a worldwide trade fair for organic food. Or we can see that on the growing number of suppliers who see the new trend with a special offer for bulk shops. And also some classic supermarket chains like Famila or Edeka, this is in Germany, who propose now an area with unpackaged product or accept containers at the counter. Unpackaged may go mainstream. And Unverpackt, the packaging-free shop, is now an established term. But if we look globally, packaging-free shops is a niche market. It's like a drop in the ocean. However, there are the proof that the waste reduction is possible in food retails. And we saw in the presentation from Larissa that there is a lot of waste reduction or waste with avoiding in every shop, in every packaging-free shops. And they have a high social impact and also source of inspiration for waste reduction and also catalysator in the zero waste lifestyle. And as in Kiel, they can inspire politics to reduce waste in their city. And oops, sorry. There is also oops. So it's but what is the impact of a packaging-free shop in terms of waste? You have, of course, the visible part with a clear reduction of packaging waste due to reusable container. And then you have a non-visible part in B2B, in business to business. At the shop, for example, we constantly look at the best packaging compromise when considering the supply chain. For example, 25 kilo bags for cereals or deposit boxes for fruit and vegetable. A student make for me an evaluation of B2B in 2015, and that was over 3 months, and that was measuring all the waste we produced and came to the conclusion that our waste in the shop was equivalent to those of a 4-person family household. But if you look globally, packaging-free shops is I tell you that just for. Yes, and regarding the municipality, but can a municipality support? We must look at this with care, because a municipality is a public institution and a shop is a business. So the same rules apply for any business, and you cannot expect too much, like a direct financial help. You do not have to ask for the moon, even if a city could see an advantage in having a bulk shop in its center. However, a municipality can support in another way. At first, when you create an enterprise, you may need authorizations, explanations of administrative processes, and here a city can definitely help. Secondly, a municipality can support the unpackaged concept rather than a specific shop. And third, they can appeal to you as private person, for example, in the frame of a discussion in roundtable, or write an article about you, or made an expert interview. That was a case, for example, for the project of the city for plastic bag free Kiel, or for the European Week of Waste Reduction, where they made a podium discussion and called me as an expert, then to be part of. And for the future bulk stop owners, or for someone who wants you to do this, it's really in your hand. You have to be proactive. As a business, you can, for example, make attractive offers to the city. And as private person, you can show your engagement in the non-profit milieu or in city sustainable projects. You can establish contact and be integrated locally, or better, be the advocate for waste reduction in a zero waste city project. You have to think that a packaging-free shop has now a granted place in a zero waste city life. And the other message for future packaging-free shop founders will be that the beauty of running a packaging-free shop is that you are not just running a business, you are a zero-waste activist. And thank you for your attention.
Great, thank you, Marie. Really interesting developments in Germany and great work with your own store. There are quite a few questions in the Q&A, and also we've received them previously about the supply chain of a packaging-free shop. So it'd be great to hear a little bit more about that. So what happens before those products that you sell in the store happen in the supply chain? So are they, for example, packaged in reusables, or what happens in the supply chain?
Supply chain at first, as Larissa shown in the survey, we really try to get locally suppliers and then to hold the chain as short as possible. And for sure, as the first question when we are contacting some supplier is how are the goods then packed, and we want to have a big packaging for example the 25 kilo for cereals, and mostly it's on paper. We also have steel plastic, but it's really reduced. But I will say on this place that the market it's not so ready. But it's a lot of change. I can remark a lot of change in these 7 years. Yeah.
Great. And a little bit on the same topic is, are there any particular items that you struggle to produce or get into your shop that you would like to sell, but it's very difficult to get them packaging free?
It's no, I think I have really a lot. Sometimes it's really from the particularity of the products who have to be in single use or in plastic, and this is always the question: do we have to take this product in our shop, or is the impact or our impact not that big? But just now, I do not have a product what I don't sell because of the packaging or difficulty. No, I think there really a lot of products who are possible without packaging. Okay, if we are speaking from product from butcher or for meat or dairy products, it's not that easy, but deposit system are really nice for.
Great. Also, how do you see, as a small shop owner, these big supermarket schemes of selling some of their products as packaging free? Do you see them as a supplement to your business, as a competitor, or as a partner in making the impact happen?
At first, it's clear that for a shop owner, it's a bit we are a bit afraid from some big companies. But on the other side, it's really what we want on and our targets, and to spread the possibility to buy and package on every corner. For the moment, the little part in a supermarket, I will say, or sometimes bigger parts, I think that for the moment they are indirectly good publicity for little shops. Because for the moment, I do not know unverpacked supermarket, or not in Europe.
Great. Thank you very much. We need to rush forward for our third speaker. Thank you very much, Marie.
Thank you.
And next up, we have Lucia Pereira from Versuvak, and she's the Director of Legal Affairs there, who, after 14 years of practicing as a lawyer, decided to dedicate to the bulk sector. And her expertise is especially in the regulatory European business law, and more particularly in food law, environment law, and regulated products such as cosmetics and detergents and stuff like that. And the 3 key points that she will address in her presentation is the official legal definition of bulk sales, and the hygiene, traceability, and consumer information in bulk sales, and then legal restrictions still to be cleared. Please, Lucia, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I share my screen. It's okay? I cut my camera in order to have a better connection. Okay. Hello, I'm very glad to present you today the packaging-free sales regulatory developments in France. I am Lucia Pereira. I work for Réseau-Vrac as Director of Legal Affairs. Réseau-Vrac is the only professional bulk sales association in the world. We have 5 years and we represent almost 2,000 players of the bulk sector. We work mainly in France today, but we have also actions in Europe and at the international level. I will explain you our actions. In France, since last year, we have an official legal definition of packaging-free sales in our consumer code, thanks to Réseau-Vrac's lobbying actions. Our goal with this definition is to create a secure regulatory framework for all players of the sector: producers, brands, equipment manufacturers, distributors, and consumers. So what are the issues, the developments of this legal definition, and what are our future actions? The legal definition has two main issues. The first is to promote packaging-free sales as a sustainable and responsible way of consumption, assuming that it allows to reduce the impact of waste packaging on the environment and to reduce food waste. The second issue is to clarify consumer information, hygiene, and traceability rules. So there is our legal definition. Packaging-free sale is defined as the sale of products to the consumer presented without packaging in chosen quantity. Presented without packaging, which means without the primary packaging. The consequence of the absence of a primary packaging is the chosen quantity by the consumer. In a reusable or a re-employed container, reusable is, for example, the glass spout of jam, which instead of being thrown away by the consumer, is washed and reused to buy free packaging rice, for example. And re-employed container, it's the returnable container, which is re-employed for the same use. Packaging-free sale is available in self-service. Self-service is an important criterion for distinguishing between modern free packaging sales and traditional non-packaged sales as bakery, meat, fish, and cheese counters. Free packaging sale can be concluded by distance selling contract. It concerns bulk drives or click and collect, which have seen significant growth, in particular during the global health crisis. The definition of free packaging sales is completed by a fair trade principle in order to lift legal barriers bounded to technical standards or regulations which are not adapted to packaging-free sales, as they have been adopted for prepackaged way of consumption. The definition is also completed by the consumer right to be served in a reusable and re-employed container with a chosen quantity. And we resolved with the affirmation of this right the question of the responsibility for the hygiene and the suitability of the container. We also have an obligation for the supermarkets with a surface superior to 400 square meters to provide clean, reusable and re-employed containers to the consumer, and an obligation for CTO, for the French entity who manage the disposal of waste, to annually dedicate at least 2% of contributions amount collected to the development of reusable packaging alternatives like local wash stations for usable containers or local dispositifs for returnable containers. So there is our principle of free trade for free packaging sales. Any consumer product can be sold in bulk, except for duly justified reasons of public health. The list of exceptions is set by decree. Thanks to its principle, we have yet lifted some restrictions provided by non-adapted regulations. In France, packaging-free shops can sell olive oil in reusable bottles, which is not yet the case in other member states, as in Belgium, for example, where it is prohibited to sell olive oil. We are working with the Belgian authority to lift these restrictions. In Europe, packaging-free shops can now legally sell chia seeds, graines de chia. We worked last year with the European Commission in order to modify an unadapted regulation. In France, packaging-free shops can sell dry qualitative products under PDO or PGE, like Camargue rice, riz de Camargue. Indeed, we introduced in the Rural Code the obligation to provide in the specifications of these qualitative products the traceability rules for packaging-free sales. A decree has been adopted and notified last week to the European Commission in order to list the products for which packaging-free sale is prohibited because of European restrictions. Those products are milk, food supplements, frozen food, and infant food. We are currently working on lobbying action with European institutions in order to lift these remaining European restrictions, as we know they are not justified by public health reasons. Indeed, industrial experimentations are currently underway and show that these products can be sold in bulk without risks by using an adapted bulk equipment and good hygiene and information practices. We are still waiting for the adoption of specific rules for volatile products classified as dangerous under REACH regulation, as sodium percarbonate, soda crystals, citric acid. Today, these chemical products can be sold in bulk without restriction in equipments which are not always adapted to the volatility and the hazardousness of these products. The second way to promote packaging-free sales is the consecration of the consumer right to be served in a reusable or a re-employed container with a chosen quantity. We have now this article which provides that any final consumer can ask to be served in the container he brought on his own, to the extent that the latter is visibly clean and adapted to the nature of the product purchased. An in-store display informs the final consumer about the cleaning rules and the suitability of reusable or re-employed containers. In that case, the consumer is responsible for the hygiene and the suitability of the container. The affirmation of this consumer right marks the willingness of the French politics to balance consumer protection and environment protection. Indeed, it is now acted in France and accepted that when the consumer chooses to buy in bulk, he is responsible for the cleanliness and suitability of his container. Here, the concept of responsible consumer becomes clear. This transfer of responsibility to the consumer requires that bulk shops put up a mandatory display consumer information about cleaning protocols for reusable containers for sensitive products like cosmetics or perishable products. We set up a working group on cleaning protocols for reusable containers for cosmetics in partnership with Cosmebio, Edenco and EcoCert in order to recommend standardized protocols tested in our group. The criterion of chosen quantity is very important in packaging-free sales. It is thanks to this criterion that we can affirm that bulk consumption reduces food waste. Our French Environment Agency, l'ADEME, is now measuring the impact of packaging-free sales on the reduction of waste packaging and food waste. The results of the study will be available this year. The respect of this criterion of chosen quantity is a real stake for bulk e-commerce websites not to impose predefined quantities as we have in prepackaged consumption, and a real stake for bulk sale of liquid food and non-food products in order to promote sales by weight or volume instead of refill practices. We are working on metrological rules in order to facilitate packaging-free sales of liquid products. The second goal of the French legal definition of packaging-free sales is to clarify consumer information, hygiene, and traceability rules for food and non-food products. First, for food products, it is the criterion of self-service included in the definition that allows to distinguish between modern packaging-free sales and traditional non-packaged sales as bakery, meat, fish, and cheese counters. In those traditional non-packaged shops, the consumer may obtain information about the products directly from the trader, whereas in packaging-free sales, the consumer is alone in front of the equipment and needs relevant and complete information, which is not the case today. Today, when you buy packaging-free rice, for example, you have the same information that when you buy a slice of ham at the butcher shop. Our goal is to make mandatory for packaging-free sales in self-service, one, the labeling of mentions which are today only voluntary, like batch number, date, preservation conditions, nutritional information. Second, the labeling of the risk of contamination due to the volatility of allergens in packaging-free sales. When a shop sells packaging-free rice near from packaging-free pasta, there is a risk for the rice to be contaminated by the gluten of the pasta. And third, the cleaning of bulk sales equipment at each batch change to guarantee the perfect hygiene and traceability of the products. The third goal of the French legal definition is to clarify consumer information, hygiene, and traceability rules for non-food products, cosmetics and detergent mainly, but also pharmaceutical, etc. We are working with European federations, European commissions, member states, in order to inscribe in the European law and in national laws the following French legal obligations. First obligation, the integration of bulk sale protocols in the product information file of the cosmetics products. A brand, a producer who wants to provide the market with bulk cosmetics has to evaluate the security and the stability of the products at each steps of bulk sales. Second, the pre-labeling of reusable containers. In France, the consumer who buys a cosmetics, a packaging-free cosmetic or a packaging-free detergent, he returns home with a complete labeling reusable container. And third, finally, an in-store mandatory information display to prevent the risk of product mix or consumer confusion. Thank you very much for your attention.
Great. Thank you very much, Lucia. And yeah, we are open for questions, particularly for Lucia at the moment. But if there is somebody else who would like to ask, we are opening the floor soon for all the other speakers today. But there is one question, are there any legal requirements in terms of hygiene of bulks, like, for example, washing temperature, detergent, anything like that?
We have hygiene regulation in Europe that applies to free packaging sales, but sometimes this regulation is not sufficient. That's why Réseau Vrac has specific recommendations, more precise and more adapted to the sector.
Great. Thank you. I think you also answered many questions that the people were asking of different contexts in Europe, how to apply. But would you give some recommendations on policymakers, given the good examples from France?
For example, our main recommendation in terms of hygiene is the cleanliness of the equipment at each batch change, which is not applied by all shops, bulk shops. We know that it's not the case.
Great. And how do you see the role of technology, how it can play a role in like refill or zero waste solutions in the shops? Or can it maybe help some of the different legal aspects that are currently a hindrance?
In France, the politics are really open to bulk sector and see the innovations in order to modify the regulation.
Can you give us an example of some new technology that could help?
No, I can see an example now.
No worries. What about any liability issues dedicated or associated with the reuse of containers? How do you get around this?
Sorry, excuse me, I didn't.
Is there any liability issues associated with the reuse of containers, and are there any solutions to get around this?
Sorry, I didn't understand.
Like, can you get into trouble for having substandard reusable containers in your shop?
I can't hear you. Sorry, I will reconnect my.
Are you hearing us better now?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Or maybe I can answer in the chat.
Yes, please, if you can answer the questions in the Q&A in writing, and I can move on with the other panelists and some questions dedicated especially for them. And I think this question is mainly for Marie. Do you see an opportunity for specialist bulk wholesalers with reverse logistics and models to help with the supply chain evolution and to make it easier for you to get those products without any packaging?
I think that there is, because of the great movement in Germany and also across Europe, there are more possibility or rethinking from the old supply chain, and I think that we will then reach more and more product in reusable packaging or in deposit, and really in probably a couple of years. It's not from today or tomorrow, but I think that this is on the good way to manage or to have a nice food supply chain, or for our all logistic with sustainable solutions. Yeah.
Great. Have you, or maybe Larissa, can you answer the question about if somebody, for example, gets sick with food poisoning from reusing their container for food? And there is, of course, the chance that the container is not hygienically clean to start with, but they could still blame the shop for the faulty product. Is there any way you can go around that?
Shall I?
Yes, if you have an answer, please.
There is no what could I say? The rule will be, as a customer, has the responsibility as to bring a proper container, a clean container. But for sure, we are not behind every customer, and we cannot check all the containers. Is from one part its responsibility, and on the other part is our responsibility, as Lucia told. Then we have really to clean our bulk, and then to have a clean process for refilling all the bulk bins or all the container we have at disposition to the customer in the shop. Then, but naturally, if there is if something happen in the shop, you are the first person who is responsible. But for that, then to prove that this is because of you or of you goods, then I think you have, it's not about one person, but if there is 10, 20 person who have something, then could be something with lawyer or more problematic.
Yes, thank you.
I would say.
What about, there's some questions in the chat about, like, now with COVID, we are all worried about hygiene, and like that brought back the single use that we thought that we had got rid of, or had at least declined the use of single use products in many places. Have you seen an influence in your shop from COVID and these like new hygiene standards that we are living?
Definitely at the beginning of the COVID, or from March last year, we really noticed a decline from the customer. At first, a lot thought that we are closed because of hygiene, and it's really a pity, because there is no rules who do not allowed to bring own container. Clear, there is some procedure to follow, then bringing your own container, but it is not prohibited. A lot of shops do not want to accept containers, but this is their own decision. It's not a legal decision, and at the end of the year, we noticed that the customers then notice, okay, it's possible, and then now that we know that COVID, it's not jump from a surface to another. It's more from people's. Then I think that they are more confident with the unpackaged shops, or buying by unpackaged. But it's definitely the case that a lot of people then came back to single-use coffee cups and so on and so on. There was pity to see that zero waste things were down because of COVID, or as explanation, or yeah.
Yeah, great. Then probably more directed towards Larissa and the environmental impacts of packaging and the produce. I know you have been working on some LCA studies of reusable packaging, single-use packaging. What materials are the most sustainable in terms of packaging, and how far should raw materials travel to have a low footprint?
Yeah, on that, I really like the sentence that there is no such thing as a sustainable product, but a sustainable system, because it's just not replacing one product to another. It really depends on all the aspects where this product is being used or bought. Or so, for instance, we cannot say, many people think, oh, glass is the best option, but it always depends, like where are you sourcing this product from? Is it coming from a long distance? Is it going to be refilled, reuse it? Because from our last report and study about the life cycle analysis assessment on the environmental impact of packaging products, it was stated that single-use glass has the most impact compared to all the other packaging products. So using glass for single use is the worst what you can do. So glass should be always ideally refilled and reused, and of course as many times as possible. And it can be, as it has a long life. I mean, it's long-lasting products and material. So yeah, there's no such a thing as sustainable products, but sustainable systems. So make sure always, like for instance, it's locally sourced, locally produced, to reduce the environmental impacts of the products you're using.
Great, thank you. And there are some confusion of how the packaging or the labeling of products work in a packaging-free shop, because we heard that there's mandatory labeling. There needs to be the minimum information, and then the labeling. How does it work? Maybe Larissa or Marie, who have better experience, can you explain the process of labeling something when you bring your own product or your own container?
I guess Marie would be on the best fit. She's the packaging-free shop owner.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the rule is of the bulk bins or in the container where we propose the goods, we have to write all the information like ingredients, the date, where it's coming from, all the listed allergen, the price, and also what is the price in kilo or in kilo or 100 gram or so on. This is this is in the law. And what is coming, and it was a bit explained from Lucia, as this is in cosmetic and washing products. Now we are really, at least in Germany, we are really to take care that the container from the customer could be a reusable container, but a container who was for cosmetic or washing products. And the best will be to reuse the same container as where it was the same product. And if not, then we have to give for washing products all the information we receive from the supplier, in case if something happened. For example, it's not allowed then to take a yogurt plastic pot and to reuse it for a powder washing powder, for example, because it's you can mix it, or it's see like a food container, and actually you do not have to do this, or you have really to re-level it and really clear, and it's more and more calming. Yeah, but
Great.
the leveling of products, it's mandatory.
Great, thank you. And maybe for Larissa, well, she has been more in the European scale of the packaging-free shops. There's a question from the US saying that there has been like very few zero-waste shops around there. And what do you think is the difference? Is there a cultural difference in the reason why there is so many packaging-free shops and they are on the rise in Europe and so few in the US? And is there something that citizens or NGOs could do to encourage the zero waste culture in different countries and contexts?
Yeah, thanks. So from the experience of doing this report, assessing the packaging-free shops in Europe, we already identified a lot of cultural, kind of different cultural contexts in different countries, and that's why some of them have more packaging-free shops than the others. And I assume the US is very much focused on single use. A lot. So maybe that's why there's really like not many zero waste shops there, which really a pity, but it's also, I guess, what everyone can do, and NGOs, and if you're working, you can really lobby the government to put like policy and measures to address the single-use plastic packaging, and also support packaging-free shops, because only when you have mandatory and legal binding requirements as that's going to really happen. Otherwise, it's just single-use plastic is cheap. You know, it's easy, it's cheap, and so if there's no level playing field with reusable ones, it's not going to, unfortunately, not going to be mainstream and grow. So we really need policy measures to support this business. So really good luck there in the US. We need you.
Great. Thank you, Larissa. And now we also have Celia from Resuvrak answering questions here about especially the legal side, since Lucia's audio is broken. Great to have you, Celia. Great effort to jump in the middle of the call. And there's a question, when seeing refill machines in big stores for home and personal care products, you can only use one bottle for a specific liquid. Also, the CLP info has to be printed. Is there not a route to make this simpler through technology? For example, if the consumer receives the CLP info via an email or something?
Sure. Is everybody hearing me very well? Yes, great. Happy to be on board. It depends. Of course, technology can be a help and sometimes not. We've seen a lot of new technologies being developed here in France for bulk bins. The advantages it can give you is to know instantly the quantity you are taking from the bulk bin with the price. And you can, of course, connect with an app and find all the information about your product at home. But on the other side, the technology is not mature yet, so we can have a lot of problems in the store where it's not working very well. In addition, to ensure that the sellers in the store are well trained and know how to maintain this kind of equipment. So on one side, you have a very nice promise to the consumer, and on the other side, we know that the market needs to get on board and needs to be trained. And at the current moment, what we notice is that in the packaging-free aisles, bulk ales in the shops when it's not a proper packaging-free shop. Unfortunately, the supermarket does not often dedicate a person to take care of this packaging-free ale. And that's one of the main issues we see at the moment, because if we need to maintain this bulk ale, we need to inform the consumer, etc., etc. And if you add a lot of technologies, then you need to be sure that whether the person on the spot knows how to maintain it, or the equipment enterprise firm needs to get a very good team that can ensure the maintenance for the retailer. So I say yes to technology, but be careful that it works, and also be careful about the environmental footprint, global footprint as well.
Great, great explanation on the legal side of that. And yeah, could you maybe also answer about the liability issue of reused containers? Marie also already explained something about the practical side from the shop owner's side, but maybe of the legal aspect of the liability. Do you have any more specific info on that?
The labeling, it was the
liability, responsibility of the reusable packaging.
Alors, we have the law that we say about the consumer container in France. It's what Lucia explained. It says that, so in the new article law that we introduced in the French Consumer Code, we say that if the container is clean and adapted, it means that you cannot use a food container to put inside some detergent or cosmetics products, for example. Then that's the adaptability of the container. Then it needs to be clean, and also you need to have some information about it, about the process of cleanliness, about this adaptability, etc., that needs to be printed and set in the shops. If you have all these conditions that are gathered, then the responsibility is transferred to the consumer. And then it's not the shop, the retailer, that is responsible for the container, but it's the consumer. And that's really a main step in the law, because a lot of shopkeepers could have been not willing to go for that, but we succeeded in clarifying the responsibility of the container with that law.
Great, thank you. And maybe going back towards more the practical shop and zero waste shop side, question from Marie. Since the rise of the new hygiene standards here in the society, have you seen new technologies that have been developed for contactless bulk dispensers? Because currently we are using, for example, scoops or handles. So is there some new innovations on how to buy in bulk without touching too much?
Mm-hmm. I saw last year on this big exhibition at the Biofach that was really under the topic from unpackaged or bulk shops, and was incredible all the technology who was developed in the last years, from scanning a code on the container, then scanning the product, then receiving just a label with all the information on it, from price, from ingredient, and so on, and also without any contact, or less contact. Will be also some chip on your container that you bring in front of the beans, and it recognize, okay, this is a bulk for, or this is a bulk for this good, and then the good will flow. Some technology. I think it's really nice, but it have to be developed, and it has to be accessible for all the little shop, probably for a big supermarket with a lot of money. At the shop level, I think if you are very strict with all your hygiene processes and how the customer have to fill in its container with some help. We have some devices to help and do not have the contact from the container and the bulk, or to use just one time a spoon or some other very simple stuff. It's also possible, very hygienical. But yes, there is a lot of technology who are developed in that way. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And this is probably our last question for today, since we are running out of time in a couple of minutes, and it's directed for Larissa as an experienced consumption and production campaigner. How to promote zero waste shops, and what kind of strategies could we implement with the suppliers and consumers to drive this change forward?
Well, how can you promote these shops? Well, I guess mainly through policy, I've already mentioned. That's why all this how to say, this work being done behind doors, lobbying the decision makers, European Commission, the national government, it's really important. And now we have a really important directive and legislation being revised at the European level. The Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive is the directive that deals with packaging in Europe. So, and we really want to make sure we get this revision supporting reusable systems, reusable packaging free, and not only recycling, not because we cannot recycle all this packaging that we are producing. Just no way. So really, let's try to push for the reuse targets, refilling targets, to set up the cap, as I said, on single-use packaging, as well to economic incentives for this packaging-free shops to grow. Because as I mentioned, very important, the level playing field. For you to start your business today with reusable systems, much more expensive than single-use cheap products. And if that does not change, if the policy does not change, then it will continue like that. Because of course, when you're starting your business, you're not thinking first, as the environment. You must think your business will be profitable or not. So it's just like, we need these regulations to make sure the single-use packaging really absorb all the costs, external costs, as I said, littering, pollution that it causes. So it's basically through policy, and I said there's the packaging one being revised at EU level, and there's the implementation of the single-use plastic directive by the national governments, by the member states. So they're both opportunities that we can support zero-waste business models and packaging-free shops at the European and national level. Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you. And just as the last couple of reminders, you will get the recording of this webinar. You will find it on our Zero Waste Cities website soon, for you to watch it later. And we will also upload all the presentations from our speakers there for you to have a look later. Also, next month, we have a webinar about how to solve the waste trade crisis, and it will be on the 16th of February at 11 o'clock Central European time. So if you're interested in that topic, please sign up, and we hope to see you there. If you want to hear more about Zero Waste Europe's work, research, different campaigns that we are running, please feel free to sign up to our Zero Waste Cities newsletter. And of course, have a look through our website to find all the research that we have been talking about, different case studies, where you find more useful information. And I would like to thank all of you for joining us today. Thank you for all our speakers who gave your time and expertise to share for the bigger public, and of course all our attendees who raised really good questions and really good discussion in the chat. And yeah, thank you from my part and Zero Waste Europe's part, and I hope to see you in our channels and in our next webinar. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.